Today, we're going to be looking at the Lansky fixed angle 3-stone diamond sharpening system. Is this a good budget system, or are there too many compromises on this simplified system to make it a good value? So first off, I will tell you that this system does indeed work and will sharpen a knife if you combine it with an appropriate strop. I'll talk more about this in a second. Now, over the course of my testing, I sharpened a lot of knives, including some cheap kitchen knives, as well as some higher end, high hardness folders. One of those knives was the Kunwu Knives Chad in PM60 steel, which tested at 67.5 HRC. And when combined with the appropriate 6 micron diamond strop, had no problems getting this knife reasonably sharp. And as a side note, this knife was sent to me by my friend Mike Emler from Mike Emler Crazy Sharp on YouTube. Definitely go give his channel a look. I'll put the link down below. But I also found some glaring problems with this system that you should consider before you decide to pull the trigger on one of these systems. First off, Lansky sells a number of different systems with different stones or hones included. In my experience using a number of the Lansky systems over the years, I believe if you are considering purchasing one of these Lansky systems, you definitely want to get the 3-stone diamond set that I have here. And I'll explain a little bit more about why in a second. But first, let's take a look at this system's biggest flaws, which is the stones themselves. So right out of the box, we do see some major grit contamination on both the medium and fine stones. And even after a lot of break-in, the fine diamond still has a lot of very large particles embedded into the surface. This makes the fine diamond stones perform just a touch better than the coarse. Now I found the medium stone to be somewhat useless. There's no problems jumping right from the coarse to the fine stone. The medium stone doesn't offer any more refinement than the fine stone does, and it's kind of useless. The fine stone also exhibited some raised plated edges along the corners of the stone. This causes large scratches in your bevel if it comes into contact with these edges. Now this is a pretty big flaw that I'd like to see fixed. My opinion is that the coarse stone works perfectly fine, but get rid of the medium stone completely and work on the fine stone quality. If the fine stone was closer to an actual 600 grit stone, it wouldn't be that bad. But with the grit contamination, it acts more like a 400 grit when you've completed sharpening, which is still very coarse, and the reason why the medium stone isn't really much use. And no, these images have not been mixed up. These are the actual scratch patterns after the stones have been broken in on the medium and the fine stones. Essentially, these stones act like a coarse, coarser, and coarsest. Now Lansky does sell single stone replacements in much finer ceramic grits. However, you will have a hard time removing some of these extra deep scratches with these finer ceramic stones due to the level of grit contamination that is present on the fine stone. And jumping right to an ultrafine ceramic doesn't really go along with proper grit progression, and at an additional cost. Honestly, the progression should be correct straight out of the box, in my opinion, from coarse to fine. Now my next complaint is the actual clamping mechanism itself. Now on the picture of the box, you'll see that it looks like there's a rubber piece that is supposed to be there to help protect the blade from scratches. However, in real life, they are just bare aluminum. And any blade that you put in these draws will pick up some scratches unless you tape it off. Now, not only does this add an extra step in the sharpening process, but taping also can inhibit the jaw's ability to clamp down with enough friction to hold the blade securely. And speaking of holding the blade securely, the little red knob here doesn't allow enough leverage to tighten the blade enough. So you will need a screwdriver to help tighten the screw to give enough holding power on the blade. But since the screw is steel and the base is aluminum, you need to be extra careful to not over tighten the screw, or you definitely will strip out the threads. Something that actually happened on my last Lansky system. You could chalk this up to user error, but it's just something to be aware of when you have a steel screw that is threaded into an aluminum base. Now, if you're careful, you can tighten everything securely enough to do the job and prevent scratches, but it's not a super efficient or intuitive process. Now the base and guide rod are somewhat flimsy, but they do work Sort of. The base is on the small side, so small in fact on most pocket knives you don't have access to the full stone length because the stones hit the base. Also, there's no guide rod stops on either end, so you have to be very careful to not overshoot the apex for the risk of smashing the stone itself into the apex, thus putting a big dent in the very thing you're trying to sharpen. Slipping off the edge. Now this happened to me a number of times during my testing of this unit, and it's something to be aware of. Now overall build quality is very cheap and somewhat flimsy. Even though this unit is advertised as a handheld unit, and you can buy an additional base for an extra cost, mind you, I wouldn't recommend this unit unless you have an actual vise to clamp it into. Now clamping it into a vise improves the usability by an order of magnitude. It's just too flimsy and uncomfortable of a unit to use by hand, in my opinion. Trust me, it's just not going to be fun. Just beware of the safety issues regarding clamping a knife into a vise on a workbench. This system is currently selling for anywhere from $70 to $90 depending on where you buy it from. Now, is that a good deal for this system? Well, it does get you into the world of fixed angle knife sharpening systems for under $100. And when you combine it with a coarse grit strop, something like a 6 micron or coarser, due to the coarse nature of these stones, it does profile fast and leave good coarse grit edges. If you have a strop to remove that large burr, this system definitely will leave. That being said, there are some major compromises when using a super stripped down fixed angle system like this one here. And all of those compromises or problems I mentioned with the Lansky are solved with more expensive systems like the KME, which I've reviewed here in a previous video. Now, if all you have is $70 and you just want the least expensive fixed angle system that works, and you're not picky about your edges, then this does fit that bill. It will sharpen just about any knife if you can live with these compromises. But if you are more of a knife person and want something that's more usable, higher quality, easier to use, and has a lot of future expandability, I would definitely say something like the KME is a much better overall value. However, you are paying for all of that with the much higher price tag. Now, the reason I would recommend this kit versus any of the other Lansky kits is because with the plating quality being so poor, you're not going to get better performance out of a kit that includes more stones. Also, while Lansky does sell other kits with different stones, those kits include aluminum oxide stones, which will suffer a lot if you are working with more modern high hardness steels, especially with the smaller stone size. Now, adding a fine ceramic into this particular kit would be a better option, in my opinion, than the medium stone they include. In other words, this kit, the 3-stone diamond kit, should be a coarse and fine diamond stone as well as a fine ceramic. That would be a much better option in my opinion. I feel like if Lansky made just a couple of very small little changes, they'd have a much better product that offers a lot more value. Now I'm going to leave it up to you to decide which system is best for you, but my personal opinion is sometimes you get what you pay for. Sometimes. And as the old saying goes, buy once, cry once. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.